Yeah, well, it was obviously a very extreme kind of viewpoint that he was taking. Obviously, an unbelievably disrespectful one. It's probably the most disrespectful thing you could say to a fellow Irishman is that he's not Irish just because I come from the north of the country. But look, as I've talked about a couple of times now, I didn't take it very personally because unfortunately, like it's not the Connor that I once knew. So it's not people are saying, is it not hard to hear that from someone you looked up to?
He is coming off what is already the 2025 fight of the year. What an incredible performance. What an incredible war. And I'm always happy to speak to the great Paul Hughes. Paul, welcome back, man. How is everything?
Life is very good, bro. How about you?
I'm fantastic, man. Thank you for taking time for me as always. I know, like, no hyperbole because we're speaking right now. You can go on Twitter and see it as well. Like, that fight with Usman was everything is advertised and even better. Can I ask, like, I know the result didn't go your way, but have you enjoyed the reaction? Because everyone is like, this is already one of the best fights of the year. I know we're early, but incredible fight. The contest was so close. Again, moral victories aren't victories, but do you appreciate the reaction to the fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's good to see my work appreciated now on the biggest stage. It's certainly a good feeling. Would have been a little bit nicer if my hand was raised, but at the end of the day, I'm still happy with it all. My stock is certainly through the roof, so it's not a bad position.
Absolutely. I know we talked before and after pretty much all your fights. In a way, I'm actually kind of glad we waited a little bit to talk because, in the heat of the moment, you're so emotional. A lot of times you haven't had time to go back and dissect it. So can I ask, like, have you had a chance to go back and rewatch the fight and just kind of like analyze it from a non, like, in that moment? Like, I imagine like for the first few days after the fight, you're still kind of amped up about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've watched it a number of times now. Look, definitely a close fight. I obviously believe I won it. I believed at the time, especially with how the momentum of the fight was going in rounds 4 and 5, that it was surely my fight and my hand would be raised, but it wasn't. This is the thing with we see it every single weekend in MMA events. We see judges' scorecards that are just kind of a bit ridiculous, and I mean, a 4-1 scorecard is obviously crazy talk, but look, it was a close fight. I just need to make sure that next time I get him out of there.
Yeah. Can I ask, like, take it away? I know fighters are their own worst critics. You could have gone out there and blanked him 5-0, and you probably come in and tell me, like, I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right. But when you rewatch the fight, what do you assess about your performance? Like, where did you go right? Where did you go wrong?
I feel I implemented the game plan as we planned. I think I've done a very good job of doing that. Perhaps I could have put a bit more pressure on him earlier, but of course, when you're fighting somebody with such a good wrestling base, you have to be careful. You can't just run in there throwing 4s and 5s at him as much as I would like to try do that and to try and knock him out. I had to be very meticulous with how I approached the fight, and I feel like by round 4, I had him almost there. I had him almost broken, and I think that the head clash completely changed the momentum of the fight. I do believe that he was done at that point, and that I was going to get him out of there because I had him where I wanted it, and I had maybe whatever 7 minutes from the head clash. Um, if he did not have the recovery time, I believe that within that 7 minutes, I would have found an opportunity for the kill shot because that's what I do best. And yeah, I just need to make sure that next time that comes earlier.
I mean, it's unfortunate, right? Because you had the clash of heads and then obviously the low blows, which, also paused the fight. I mean, they got the point deduction, which again, I think was warranted. But, like I said, those are momentum killers, right? Like when you're on a run and again, accidental or not, like it does, like it kills the momentum you have, good or bad. And you had a couple of moments in that fight like that.
Yeah. But look, this is fighting. It is just a crazy game. It is a game of inches. Perhaps when we fight again, something will go in my favor. It's just the nature of the game, and that's why we love it.
After the fight, Usman openly admitted he's like, I underestimated this guy. I didn't think he was that guy. I didn't give him the respect he deserved. Did you appreciate? I mean, I guess one side you could say maybe he's making an excuse. The other side is he's admitting that like you are better than he thought he was. Did you appreciate that he acknowledged you? Because this narrative, we know, Paul, we've talked about the narrative is too much too soon. It's happened 2 fights in a row with AJ and now with Usman, where it's like Paul Hughes is good, but is he that good? And I did appreciate that Usman's like, yeah, he is that good.
To be truthful, it didn't mean anything to me, him saying that. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean it in a way that I knew that. I mean, I knew how good I was. I should have had my hand raised. That's still my feeling on it. I should have beat him. I should have done better. Um, it's, I know often a lot of people are saying, "Oh, at least you're proving that you're in that you are that level in the world." And Usman showed you so much respect and said that you are a really good fighter. And I'm just like, yeah, no, like I should have won. I am that guy. I've said it for a year now. I've said it long before I signed to the PFL that I'm one of the best fighters in the world, and yeah.
We can sit here all day, Paul, and talk about like, should have done this, should have done that. Judges got it wrong, but obviously at the end of the day, the result is the result. Do you allow, like, after the fight, do you allow yourself a couple days just sit there and kind of be stewing in it, like, being pissed off about it? Because then the hard work begins, right? Because the goal is not to stew on what happened in the past. The goal is to get back in there with Usman, fight him again, and beat him and take that title. So like, do you allow yourself a couple days to just like be angry and upset about it, or do you try to move on? Even now, like, it seems like you already kind of moved on from it, but like, how do you allow yourself that time to get upset and then just move on, or how has it been?
I wouldn't say I was angry or upset really at all. I certainly wouldn't let myself feel that for days after a fight, especially when I've worked so hard in the camp. I've turned every stone. I've fought my heart out. I mean, disappointment right away when my hand wasn't raised because we thought that we were going to get our hand raised. My team absolutely were distraught as well. But look, it's right away. As soon as I watch the fight back, I watch the event, I look at what I've done, I see that, probably should have got my hand raised. I don't, I didn't sit in that position and kind of feel sorry for myself or feel sad or disappointed. I just took it in my stride. And if anything, now it's just another deep level of fuel to drive me through my next training camp and through the rest of the preparations for whenever I fight Usman again.
Absolutely. So now, listen, right after the fight, immediately, because the fight was so incredible, everyone shifted to like, let's see it again, because Usman has kind of wiped out, a lot of the other contenders, and you gave him his hardest fight he's had in his career. I talked to Usman last week, and now obviously he's changed his tune a little bit. He said, "Win one more, and we'll get back in there." Now, to his credit, detriment, however you want to say it. Obviously, I know he does have Ramadan coming up in a month, so he's going to be kind of not training and not doing his normal thing for a month, and so obviously that would delay his start of a training camp. So, how do you feel about that now that he's saying like, "Go win one more, and we'll rematch again," as opposed to an immediate rematch?
Um, I mean, neither of them mean anything to me, to be honest. I mean, I don't, as I say, I don't mean to sound disrespectful. It's just he is whatever he said doesn't really matter. I mean, the rematch has to happen. It's going to happen. It's what the people want. It's what the fans want. It's what the promotion wants. The rematch will happen this year. Now, if Usman isn't fighting to the end of the year, then fair enough. That's his schedule. I respect his what he's got to do for his faith. That's absolutely fine, but I would love to stay busy in the meantime for sure. As you heard me call in the cage, I want Belfast. It just has to happen. If the PFL, if they, I don't want to say if they had any sense. Of course they have sense. But look, if you'd done me in Belfast, it would be game changing. I think it would be another sellout event. It would be another incredible atmosphere. It would be a very good thing for all parties involved, and it would also, of course, hype an even bigger rematch.
Absolutely. I mean, well, let me ask you. This is a tough question. Then, what would be bigger? Would you rather? Because again, if you fight this summer, again, there are options out there, and I'm sure you'll fight whoever they throw in front of you. Would you rather fight in Belfast, like maybe I don't know, June, July, to get back in there, and then fight Usman at the end of the year, or would you rather say Belfast for the Usman rematch?
Well, I mean, of course, would love Usman in Belfast, but the reality is that that wouldn't happen. They wouldn't do that. I don't think Usman would sign that contract for sure. Um, if I mean, of course, in an ideal world that would happen, but I think it's more realistic that if he isn't competing to the end of the year, that I fight in Belfast, I get a good name, and I just build this rematch even more.
Is there? I like this might be an impossible question to answer because since day one showing up in PFL, you said just give me whoever you want. Is there anybody that interests you just in terms of like magnitude? You're going to be the main event without a doubt. You're headlining in Belfast, we know that. But obviously, you want a challenge, right? Like you don't want to just fight some guy. So like, is there a name? Is there anybody out there that would actually make sense, or are you just hoping that PFL can fight? Because obviously, I know they're announcing the tournaments right now. So obviously some of the lightweights are going to be tied up. So like, do you have an idea in mind, or you just like give me somebody that I can headline in Belfast?
Well, first name that comes to mind, I think that fits the storyline is Brent Primus, former champion, fought Usman. Usman went to decision, I'm pretty sure, with him. Close enough fight. I think that's a perfect name for me to fight in Belfast if my ideal world happens. Because look, I know for a fact that I would finish him. I know for an absolute fact that I would. Now, I do not take it lightly. He is a very, very tough veteran, has been the former champion, as mentioned. I think that would be a really good fight before we do the rematch.
Absolutely, I agree. Now, one thing when I talked to Usman, one thing he said, because after the fight, it seemed like there was a lot of respect between your teams, and he had said, "I really don't have a personal problem with Paul Hughes. We had to hype the fight, we had to build the fight. That's part of the job." And of course, they sold it as Ireland versus Dagestan, and he's like, "Look, it worked. We sold out the arena. Look at how many people were there. Like, look at how many people are talking about this fight. It worked." But he's like, "In all honesty, I don't really have a personal problem with Paul Hughes. He's a good guy. He's like, yeah, I was around him in Dubai. He seems like a good dude." And obviously we've seen like that. So like, how is it for you? Because it's weird, like in the aftermath, and I know you probably hate talking about it now, but I'm gonna have to ask you about Conor. But even Khabib is like, dude, come to Dagestan one of these days. Like, come on, like there is a mutual respect there, right?
Yeah, look, of course, there's mutual respect there. I respect anybody on the planet that gets in that cage is it gets my respect regardless of what level it's at. Now, of course, if you're a successful athlete, now where I'm at, I know what it takes to get there, and I know the sacrifices that you must do to get here. So I have respect for all these guys, and yeah.
And I know, listen, I would say this. I would say that. I mean, I know Conor a little bit. We've always had a pretty good relationship in the past. It's weird that his battles had to become your battles, and what I mean by that is like obviously he had a pretty fierce rivalry with Khabib and his team. I understand that. But it's so weird that the way I would equate it, it's like if it's like if an American fighter was fighting a Russian, and I'm just like, man, you can't be friends with the Russians. Like we're all Americans. I get it, but like and you're Irish, and I understand Conor's such a big personality, but I thought that was a really weird, like, because he has a rivalry with them, you have to hate them too. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like it didn't make sense, like his argument that like, oh, you're kissing up to them or whatever. Like, why does his battle have to be your battle?
Well, it doesn't, I mean, you've seen then after the fight the mutual respect that we had, and I think that everybody kind of left going, "Oh, that was good." We had a 5 rounder, we sold the place out, we fought really hard, and we had mutual respect for each other after, as martial arts should be. I understand that, things that kind of how the narrative was trying to be pushed, and I understand that. I get it from a marketing perspective. And at the end of the day, I was the one that first came up with Ireland versus Dagestan too. Like I created that narrative, and it was good marketing, I believe. It doesn't mean that there has to be extreme personal hatred. I mean, to me, it's competition, and that's always what it was for me.
Yeah, and it's so weird. I know you addressed this, but like, I've always liked Conor, but I just thought it was weird. Like he's attacking you, attacking your nationality and stuff like that. And I just it just to me just didn't seem necessary. And again, I'm sure you agree, and I know you've addressed this before, but it was just a really weird flex, I guess, to like come after you in that way.
Yeah, well, it was obviously a very extreme kind of viewpoint that he was taking. Obviously, an unbelievably disrespectful one. It's probably the most disrespectful thing you could say to a fellow Irishman is that he's not Irish just because I come from the north of the country. But look, as I've talked about a couple of times now, I didn't take it very personally because unfortunately, like it's not the Conor that I once knew. So it's not, people are saying, is it not hard to hear that from someone you looked up to? And I kind of take it with a pinch of salt because of that reason. So it is what it is. I didn't take it. I wasn't distraught about what he said, put it like that.
Yeah, maybe this isn't the Conor that we saw in 2016. Yeah, different guy these days, it seems.
Unfortunately, it seems that way, and I certainly hope that it doesn't stay that way. I hope. I wish all the best.
Yeah, well, obviously you've always been very respectful to that, and I appreciate that. And as a guy whose family, is from Ireland, listen, you can drudge up all kinds of history with Ireland like that. And I didn't enjoy that either because, like I said, you're just as Irish as any Irishman. So obviously that. Paul, man, I can't wait. Listen, we're gonna get the rematch, whether it's next or it's gonna be later this year. We're gonna get the rematch. It's gonna be one of the most anticipated rematches of the year, and I'm sure you are already amped up. But like I said, Baby Belfast this summer, headline a card at home, get a big fight in there, and then rematch with Usman later this year. So is that the ideal scenario? I assume.
That sounds good to me.